Have you contributed many examples of using critical thinking in our daily lives in the previous discussion section? I bet so. In fact, critical writing is also a practice of critical thinking. In this section, we are going to answer the second question of today's lesson. What is critical writing? We'll try to find out the answer to this question by analyzing a sample critical essay. Pause the video, read the following critical essay, and consider the questions that follow. Have you finished reading the sample essay of critical writing? Good. Then, can you answer me some questions? Does the critical essay simply give you some information without analyzing it? Your answer must be no. In the essay, the author does offer us some basic information related to the lecture system. For example, it writes, people can listen at a rate of 400 to 600 words a minute, while the most spirited professor talks at scarcely a third of that speed. But the purpose of doing this is to use it as evidence to justify the author's point of view that in a lecture, paying attention is very difficult. So you see, the chief purpose of critical essays is not to give information, but to convince the reader of the author's point of view. Here's another example. It's a paragraph from the essay, Why Should Euthanasia Be Legalized? You can find a full version of the essay on page 45 of the book Critical Thinking and Reading. Now take a few minutes to read the paragraph. In that paragraph, the information on euthanasia practices and the data about unwanted death in the Netherlands are given to prove the author's position that legalizing euthanasia can actually save lives. What if the paragraph goes like this? There's only information. It's not critical at all. Now, let's come back to our sample essay. Does this critical essay only present the author's opinion without justification? No. In the essay, the author supports his opinion that the lecture system should be abandoned by the reasoning that it harms both students and teachers. In this sense, critical writing supports the author's position by reasoning. Then, does the essay addresses a topic from merely the author's perspective without considering different views? No. The author weighs up and responds to some conflicting ideas in the essay. For instance, he analyzes the reasons for the popularity of lecture system and proposes that it would never entirely disappear from the university scene. Considering both sides of an issue is in fact a major feature that makes critical writing distinct from other types of writings. Here's another paragraph from the essay, Why Should Euthanasia Be Legalized? Pause the video and read it. The thesis of the essay is euthanasia should be legalized. But the author doesn't ignore opposite ideas. He responds to people's worry that euthanasia is irreversible and argues that it is the last thing a doctor would do to a dying man. So we know that critical writers consider all sides of the argument before showing their own stance. But just like what we said about critical thinking, critical writing does not necessarily criticizing views of other authors either. In some cases, we do write to tell that we disagree with some views. But in many other cases, we simply write to express our own ideas. So now, after analyzing the sample essays, it's not difficult for us to come up with a summary of the characteristics of critical writing. In critical writing, a writer argues for her point of view by providing reasons and evidence and responding to opposite opinions. This is the kind of writing you're expected to do frequently in academic settings. When you struggle with the writing task in common English tests like TOEFL or CD4 or CD6, you are doing critical writing. When you are writing a personal statement or an application letter to universities abroad, you are doing critical writing. When you compose a course paper about maybe early colonists' influences on Native Americans, you are doing critical writing. When you write a blog online to share your opinions on birth control policy in our country, you are doing critical writing. When you produce a book review or a movie review, or work on a survey report on the correlations between education and employment, or email your teachers to give suggestions to the improvement of the course, you are also doing critical writing. That's why I'm teaching this course to you now.